Top 10 worst cases of cannibalism in human history. From notorious serial killers who committed the most gruesome crimes to people who, out of sheer desperation, resorted to cannibalism to survive. Let's begin. Number 10. Werewolf of Wysteria. Hamilton Howard Albert Fish was an American serial killer, sadist, rapist, child molester, and cannibal known as the Gray Man or Brooklyn Vampire or the Werewolf of Wysteria. His most infamous crime was the kidnapping and murder of 10-year-old Grace Budd in 1928. In addition to torturing and killing his victims, Fish also ate their flesh because he felt that this would help him achieve his bizarre form of religious satisfaction. He once boasted to have either abused or eaten a child in every American state. He was arrested and convicted for 8 slayings. Fish was executed by electric chair at Sing Sing Jail in New York in 1936. In 2007, a film named The Gray Man, based on the actual life and events of him, was released. Number 9. Rotenburg Cannibal. In 2001, Armin Mai's The Rotenburg Cannibal gained international notoriety when he was arrested for killing and eating Bernard Jurgen Brandes, who had willingly volunteered to be consumed. May was captured the horrifying deed on camera, and that footage was used as evidence in his trial. He said that his motivation came from an insatiable desire for closeness and companionship. Bernard Jurgen Brandes responded to an advert the cannibal had put on a website asking for someone willing to be killed and eaten. He took his victim back to his farmhouse in Rotenburg, Germany, where he cut of Brandes' penis, which they both then tried to eat. The killer then stabbed him to death and chopped up his body into sections before freezing them. Investigators estimated he had eaten around 45 pounds of his victim when he was arrested in December 2002. On the 10th of May 2006, a court in Frankfurt convicted Mays of murder and sentenced him to life imprisonment. As of 2020, Mays has been allowed to go outside of prison for supervised excursions in disguise around town in a different state. Number 8. Butcher of Rostov. Over a span of 12 years, Andrei Chikatilo, the Red Ripper, or Butcher of Rostov, brutally murdered and cannibalized at least 52 women and children in the Soviet Union. His horrific crimes were driven by sexual frustration and a disturbing pleasure he derived from the suffering of others. Chikatilo's reign of terror ended with his arrest in 1990. On February 14, 1994, he was executed with a single shot to the head, his last words apparently being, "Don't blow my brains out. The Japanese want to buy them." Citizen X, a television movie based on Chikatilo's life, was aired in 1995. Number 7. Milwaukee Cannibal. Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster, was a notorious American serial killer active from 1978 to 1991. He murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys, primarily young, gay men of color. His crimes were marked by a horrific escalation of violence involving necrophilia, cannibalism, and the preservation of body parts. Dahmer was eventually apprehended in 1991 and diagnosed with several personality disorders. Despite this, he was found legally sane and sentenced to life in prison. On November 28, 1994, Christopher Scarver, an inmate at Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin, was assigned to clean the prison's gymnasium with 2 other inmates. One inmates Jesse Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer. It was then that Christopher Scarver killed Dahmer by beating him to death, leaving him battered and bloody on the floor. Scarver also fatally beat Anderson. Then, he walked back to his cell. When a guard asked him why he was back so early, Scarver said, "God told me to do it. You will hear about it on the 6 o'clock news." Jesse Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer are dead. Netflix released first season of the American biographical true crime television anthology series, Dahmer, on September 21, 2022, about one of the most notorious serial killer in the United States. Number 6. The Donner Party. The Donner Party, sometimes called the Donner Reed Party, were a group of American pioneers who migrated to California in a wagon train from the Midwest. Delayed by a multitude of mishaps, they spent the winter of 1846-1847 snowbound in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Facing severe starvation, members of the Donner Party resorted to cannibalism, consuming the bodies of those who had died in an attempt to survive. Hair, bones, skulls, and the fragments of half-consumed limbs were said to be around the fire. 47 people survived from the original Donner Party of '81, and 32 of them were children. This harrowing tale remains one of the most infamous cases of survival cannibalism in American history. Even President Lincoln had been interested in joining the cross-country trek, but stayed behind because of his toddler son and pregnant wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. Yes, how crazy is this? There was a chance that Lincoln and Mary Todd could have joined the Donner Party. This was 20-ish years before his presidency. After all, imagine what would have been different in American history. In 2009, film The Donner Party, an American period Western drama film based on the events of the incident, was released. Number 5. The Tragedy of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. On October 12, 1972, a plane carrying 5 crew members and 40 passengers crashed in the Andes. Of the 45 people aboard the plane, 33 people survived the crash, only to face the frigid cold and snow of the mountains, avalanches, and, most famously, a lack of food. As they fought for their lives for more than 2 months, they fed themselves by cannibalizing the bodies of their deceased friends and teammates. On December 22, 23, 16 people still alive were rescued. The ordeal was the basis for a number of books and films, including the bestseller Alive 1974 by Piers Paul Reed, which was adapted for the big screen in 1993, and the film La Sociedad de la Nieve, Society of the Snow, released in 2023 and based on a 2008 book by Pablo Virsay. Number 4. The Essex Sinking. The story of the Essex whaling ship is a harrowing tale of survival and desperation. In 1820, a sperm whale rammed and sank the Essex in the vast Pacific Ocean. Though 20 crew members initially survived in small boats, they were woefully unprepared for the long journey to land. With dwindling supplies and no hope of rescue in sight, the men descended into madness. After weeks at sea, they resorted to the unthinkable cannibalism. Of the 20 crew members who left Nantucket, 8 who survived consumed flesh of the 12 deceased. If food and water ran short, cannibalism sometimes ensured survival. The common expression for these acts of survival was the custom of the sea. This horrific act, a desperate attempt to stay alive, became a defining feature of the tragedy and a source of fascination and horror for years to come. The sinking inspired the climactic scene in Herman Melville's Moby Dick, published in 1851. Number 3. Cannibal Teacher. Former math and chemistry teacher was found guilty of murdering, then eating a man he met on an online dating app to fulfill cannibalism fantasies during a horrific incident in September 2020. The court heard Stefan R. sedated his date, killed him, and severed his genitals before consuming them. "What you did was inhuman," said the judge, Matthias Schertz. In response, the defendant denied killing the mechanic, claiming he found the electrical worker dead on his couch after he slept at his northern Berlin apartment, and did not call for emergency services because it would have come out that I am homosexual. When police raided Stefan R.'s apartment in November 2020, investigators found 25 kilos of a cleaning agent called sodium hydroxide, also known as lion caustic soda, that is also suitable for dissolving human tissue. In addition, relevant tools such as knives and saws, as well as traces of blood, were also discovered in the basement. In January 2022, the German, dubbed the Cannibal of Pankow, was sentenced to life in prison. Number 2. First Mr. Gay UK. Anthony Morley is an English former model and convicted murderer. He won the first Mr. Gay UK contest in 1993. In 2008, he was imprisoned for the killing, dismemberment, and partial cannibalization of his lover, magazine executive Damien Oldfield. Morley slashed his lover's throat and stabbed him multiple times after the pair had watched Brokeback Mountain in bed in Leeds. The trained chef then carved up his flesh, seasoned it with herbs, fried it in olive oil, and then ate it. After the murder, Morley stumbled into a nearby kebab shop at 2:30 a.m. in his dressing gown covered in blood and asked someone to ring the police. Morley claimed at the time that he was acting out of self-defense after someone had tried to rape him. Victim Oldfield worked for the publishers of a gay magazine called Bent. The victim's mother said at the time of the verdict, "Damien loved life, and he has had that taken away from him in the cruelest of circumstances." Morley was sentenced at Leeds Crown Court in October 2008 to at least 30 years in prison. As of May 2024, he is still serving time in Leeds prison. He works in the prison as a chef. Number 1. The animal noise-making cannibal. Florida student Austin brutally murdered and ate the face off a couple in an apparently random killing. 19-year-old college student Austin Haruf walked into a garage and killed two strangers, eating one of the victims' faces. After killing Michelle Mizakan, 53, and John Stevens III, 59, Haruf tried to bite chunks from Stevens' face and body. He thought he was half man, half dog, and being chased by a demon. Austin Haruf was making animal noises when police arrived on the grisly scene and allegedly found him on top of John Stevens, tearing pieces of flesh off with his teeth. Cops tasered the crazed 19-year-old to no effect, and even a police dog could not stop him continuing the attack. Florida Judge Sherwood Bauer of the 19th Judicial Circuit found Haruf not guilty by reason of insanity and ordered him to be sent to a mental hospital after the prosecution and the defense reached an agreement to avoid trial. Cannibalism has a long and complex history. Cannibalism doesn't always equal barbarity. Sometimes it occurs as a last resort during famines or war or survival. Some see it as part of a dark ritual, while others simply enjoy the act itself. It's a twisted act driven by a desire for survival, control, power, or even a sick thrill. If you found this video informative, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting videos. And remember, the human spirit can endure a lot, but it is our choices that define us. See you next time.